She lived alone on the edge of sacred land for 19 years, haunted by whispers and shadows that carried her mother's name. But when 6 Comanche riders appeared with a carved token, everything she thought she knew unraveled. Stay with us for a tale of legacy, silence, and awakening. Like, comment, and subscribe for more gripping stories from the Wild West. She had lived alone at the edge of the sacred land for 19 years, in a cabin her mother built with her bare hands after fleeing something unspeakable in the east. They used to say the land there spoke, not with words, but with wind in. The branches, the cries of coyotes at dusk, and the way the ground sometimes trembled when no storm passed overhead. Elia remembered those signs well, for she had watched her mother kneel and press her ear to the soil when the night grew uneasy. Now the cabin bore only Elia's footsteps, worn into the floorboards like an old rhythm, steady and stubborn. She rose each morning before the mist left the ridge, fetching water from the narrow stream below, speaking to the woods not with fear, but with reverence. Her only company were the crows and the stories carved into the walls, markings her mother had etched with charcoal and prayer. Most who came near the boundary line stayed clear of her land. They knew it as a Comanche buffer, untouched, half-claimed, spiritual, and off-limits, even to ranchers. Elia never questioned why her mother had chosen this lonely edge to raise her. She only honored it, until the day her mother wandered into the trees during a red moon and never returned. That was 10 winters ago. She stopped looking after the day. 5th year, now she stayed not out of hope, but out of duty. Until dawn broke differently. 6 riders appeared like shadows on the southern slope, their horses silent, their feathers marked with smoke symbols, and their leader carrying a carved token Elia hadn't seen since her mother vanished. They did not call her name or raise their hands in greeting. They simply dismounted at the line where sacred and claimed land met and waited. It was then Elia stepped down from the porch barefoot, heart stone heavy, breath caught between memory and omen. The man at the front spoke one word, her mother's name, and Elia knew something had returned that should have stayed buried. What do you think lies behind the token they brought? A promise, a warning, or something more? Share your guess in the comments. The carved token in the old Comanche's hand was shaped like a leaf but rougher, darkened by time and soil. Elia recognized the pattern. 3 vertical lines cut across the back, a symbol her mother had once worn around her neck tied to a strip of leather. It had been gone as long as her mother had. Her knees weakened, but she didn't fall. Instead, she stepped forward with the kind of stillness one learns from years of silence, of having no one to speak to but the wind. The elder Comanche placed the token gently on the flat stone near her fire pit, then stepped back. He said nothing more. None of them did. Elia's gaze drifted from one face to the next. The youngest had eyes like polished flint. One wore a necklace of small bones, and another carried a wrapped bundle on his back that looked too heavy for a simple journey. "Why now?" she asked. Voice brittle, no reply. Only the faint shift of boots in dirt, the flick of a horse's tail, the call of a raven overhead. She knew enough not to press them, not yet. Instead, she invited them to the fire with a motion of her hand, a sign. Her mother had taught her to offer peace. The men exchanged glances before moving slowly to the perimeter of the pit. Only the elder remained standing, arms crossed, eyes scanning the cabin as though looking for something long lost. Inside, Elia lit the fire and returned with a pot of boiled roots, the best she had. She handed the elder a wooden bowl. He took it without thanks, without insult. In his silence, there was weight. When they finally spoke, it was the younger one who broke it. "Your mother had another name," he said in measured English. "One she did not give you." Elia didn't respond. Not because she doubted him, but because part of her already knew. The carvings on her cabin wall were more than decoration. They were stories told in a language her mother had refused to translate. The boy reached into his satchel and pulled out a folded cloth. When he opened it, a single strand of braided black hair fell across the firelight. Elia's breath caught. "Where did you find this?" she whispered. The elder finally spoke, voice like cracked stone. "We did not find it. It was returned to us with her name burned into the soil." Who do you think left her mother's name in the soil? A friend, an enemy, or her mother herself? Write your theory in the comments. The braid lay across Elia's palms like a ghost. It was smooth and preserved, wrapped once with sinew and knotted in a way that whispered care, not haste. She had not touched her mother's hair since that red moon night when she disappeared into the pines. That night, the forest had swallowed her without a scream. Now this thread of bone-deep memory had returned, handed to her by strangers who spoke of names never shared. Her fingers trembled, but her eyes stayed dry. "Burned into the soil?" she echoed. The elder nodded slowly, then gestured to the young one, who stepped forward and untied the bundle on his back. From within, he pulled a rolled deerskin. It bore the pungent scent of pine sap and something older, more bitter, blood. He spread it across her mother's table, revealing a hand-drawn map of the surrounding ridges and valleys, but not as Elia had ever seen them. This was not a map for travel. It was a record of spirit lines, places of crossing, ancient ground, burial paths. At the very edge of the hide, scrawled in what looked like old ink or possibly dried ochre, were 4 symbols. Elia leaned closer. She didn't recognize the first 2, but the third was familiar. It matched a mark burned into the hearthstone of her cabin. Her mother had once told her, "That mark keeps the watchers away." The 4th symbol, half erased, was next, to a jagged red stain. The elder tapped the map. "This is where your mother fell," he said. "But she did not die." Elia recoiled slightly. "You said she vanished." "Yes," the younger one replied. "Vanished." Into their hands. Elia's breath came. Hard and shallow. Whose hands? The elder's jaw tightened. Those who claim the land beneath the land. Who speak through stone and dream. She gave herself to them. Elia rose from the floor, heart thudding. Why would she do that? The boy looked at her gently, almost mournfully. To protect what was growing inside her. Elia froze. Her voice was a whisper. "You mean me?" But the boy didn't answer. Instead, he handed her a small bone-carved pendant. On it was a name, not Elia's, but one she somehow knew was hers all along. What do you think the hidden name carved into the pendant truly means? A new identity? A curse or a forgotten legacy? Leave your thoughts in the comments. The name carved into the bone was Sana, a word Elia had never heard spoken, yet as her fingers traced its curve, it pulsed with eerie familiarity, like a song half remembered from childhood. The elder Comanche watched her closely, then said, "That is the name your mother gave to the ones who kept her hidden. It was her offering." Elia turned sharply. "Offering?" He nodded. "To ensure you were not claimed before your time." She stared at the pendant, pulse quickening. Claimed by who? But he didn't answer, not directly. Instead, he walked to the edge of the ridge and pointed to a cleft in the land, where the mist lay thickest. "There is a path there. It leads to what your mother never wanted you to see, until now." Elia felt the earth shift under her, as though the land itself was listening. Her cabin, her entire world, suddenly felt small, like a stage where a much older story had merely paused. She followed the elder's gaze, then turned to the others. They were preparing their horses, their movements calm but deliberate, as if time had become suddenly urgent. The young one, the one who had spoken the most, approached her again. "If we leave now, we reach the first marker by nightfall. But you must come willingly, or the spirits will close the way." Elia hesitated. Everything within her screamed for answers, but another part whispered caution. the part that had once watched her mother walk into the forest and never come back. She looked once more at the pendant, then tied it around her neck. "I'll go," she said. "But I need to know if she's still alive." The elder tilted his head. "Alive, yes, as you understand it. Perhaps not." Elia gathered what she could: a waterskin, dried roots, her mother's old blade, then stood before the fire pit and cast a final glance at the cabin. "What happens if I don't return?" The boy's eyes didn't waver. "Then the land will know its secret was kept." The wind rose suddenly, stirring the ashes. A blackbird cried in the distance. Without another word, they mounted up, and Elia climbed behind the youngest warrior. The cabin grew smaller behind them as the mist swallowed its edges. As they descended into the valley, the air grew colder, denser, and the trees changed. Taller, older, their bark etched with ancient claw marks and burned rings. Somewhere ahead, hidden in the earth or sky, her mother waited, and perhaps something even older. What do you think Elia will discover in the valley? Her mother's truth, her own destiny, or something no one was meant to find? Drop your theories in the comments. They crossed the threshold into the sacred valley just past midday, though the sunlight dimmed the moment they passed beneath the stone arch, shaped like a broken circle. It stood alone, rising from mossy earth, weathered by centuries, its carvings older than language, spirals, handprints, and a jagged mark shaped like a wound. Elia felt it first in her chest, a pressure, as if her heart was being gently squeezed. The horses grew uneasy, snorting softly, and the Comanche men muttered under their breath, invoking names of protection. No one smiled now. The boy she rode with leaned back slightly. "Don't speak past the arch," he whispered. "The trees remember voices." Elia nodded, lips tight. The forest inside was older than any she had known. The trunks were broad and gnarled, their branches knitted into canopies that bent the light. What light remained fell in golden shards, illuminating dust motes that swirled like spirits. Here, everything smelled of damp stone, cedar smoke, and distant rain. No birds called, no wind stirred. Yet it wasn't silent, not exactly. The air hummed faintly, as though the earth itself whispered, just beyond hearing. They rode single file, along a path barely wider than a man's shoulders, and Elia noticed how the riders glanced upward more than forward. After an hour, the trail narrowed between two blackened stumps, and the elder raised his hand. All stopped. He dismounted and approached the stump on the right, placing the bone pendant against a carved notch. A low tone vibrated through the soil, like a drum beneath the surface. The ground trembled slightly, and a passage opened, not a door, but a sloping path downward where there had been only roots and leaves. The others waited for Elia. She looked into the darkness beyond the roots. It felt like walking into a heartbeat. She stepped down first. Inside, the path turned to stone. The air was colder here, but not dead. It felt watched. Carvings lined the walls, not Comanche symbols, but older still. She reached out to one and felt warmth. A woman's voice, faint, brittle like dried leaves, echoed in her skull. "You carry what I could not bear." Elia gasped, stumbling back. The others hadn't heard it. The boy looked at her sharply. "What did you hear?" She couldn't answer. Not yet. She only knew the voice was her mother's, and not from memory, but from something deeper. What do you think lies deeper? Beneath the roots, memory, magic, or madness? Share your thoughts in the comments. The stone corridor deepened in silence, though each step Elia took was accompanied by the sensation of being measured, not by men, but by the memory of the land itself. The carvings along the walls changed as they descended, at first simple. Spirals and clawed moons, then full figures, some with human eyes, others with twisted mouths and limbs outstretched like pleading ghosts. The Comanche warriors said nothing, but their eyes stayed sharp, their hands never far from their blades. Only the youngest kept near Elia, as if his presence might anchor her. The air was thick, not with dust, but with a pressing weight like the breath of something just beyond the veil. Elia felt it most when her fingers brushed a symbol shaped like a handprint with 7 fingers. The moment she touched it, warmth surged through her arm and a whisper threaded into her skull. Not like sound, but like thought folded in shadow. T.S. Aina ... Why did you stay away so long? Elia jerked her hand back, breath ragged. The voice was her mother's again, but older, layered with something else. The young warrior caught her by the elbow, steadying her. You heard it again? He asked quietly. She nodded. She said my name ... name. He glanced toward the elder, who now stood before a stone altar carved directly into the wall. He opened a small pouch and scattered dark powder, crushed root and ash, across the altar's face. Flames flickered to life without spark. From the flames rose smoke that did not drift upward, but curled downward into a basin carved with runes. The elder murmured in a tongue Elia did not know, and the smoke twisted into the shape of a woman's face. Her eyes opened. Elia staggered. Backward, the Comanche dropped to one knee. The face spoke not with sound, but through every surface of the room, through stone, air, and bone. She is not a daughter of the ridge, it said. She is a vessel of the forgotten. The face cracked and bled light, then shattered into 1,000 drifting sparks. The fire died instantly. Silence followed, except for Elia's own heartbeat. Thundering in her chest. What does that mean? She whispered. The elder looked at her now not with curiosity, but with something close to reverence. It means your mother gave you more than life. She gave you her burden. And now it stirs. Again, do you believe Elia's mother hid her power to protect her, or to protect the world from her? Let us know your theory in the comments. They moved deeper into the earth until the narrow passage widened into a great chamber hollowed out by forgotten hands. At its heart lay a circle of smooth stone, its surface polished by generations of footsteps or rituals. The 6 Comanches stopped at its edge, refusing to cross. Only Elia walked forward, drawn by the pull in her chest and the bone pendant that now vibrated gently against her skin. The moment her foot touched the circle, a rush of cold air spiraled up from the ground like breath exhaled from the earth. Itself, symbols along the walls lit with a pale amber glow, each one pulsing like the beat of a slow heart. The elder Comanche began chanting, low and rhythmic, his voice carrying weight like falling stones. The youngest turned to Elia. She came here once, he said. Your mother, but she did not finish what she began. Elia looked down. Beneath her feet, within the stone, faint lines traced the shape of a tree with burning roots. What was she trying to do? She asked. The boy didn't answer immediately. To seal something away, but she lacked time. Or strength. A sudden memory, no, sensation, hit Elia like a flood, her mother's hands bleeding. Her voice cracked from chanting. Her face twisted in pain, not fear. Elia gasped, falling to her knees. The pendant burned against her skin. A voice rose from the stone now, layered with hundreds of whispers. Old, young, male, female. All speaking one word, Sana. I don't know what you want from me, Elia cried. But the voices didn't stop. The circle glowed brighter, and in the center of the floor, a seam cracked open. From within, a sliver of black earth pulsed like a vein. The elder shouted something in his own tongue and threw a handful of salt toward. The crack, the light dimmed, the voices silenced. It is awakening, he said, because it recognizes you. Elia rose, trembling. What is it? The elder turned toward her, eyes hollow. Not what, who? The first one. Your mother touched it once. You carry what it needs to finish waking. Do you think Elia will resist the pull of the first one, or is it already too late? Share your thoughts in the comments. The crack in the stone pulsed like a slow heartbeat. and Elia could feel it responding to her breath. The glow from within wasn't light as she knew it. It was memory, raw and alive, seeping out in colors that didn't belong in this world. Bone pendant lifted gently from her chest, suspended in the air as if tugged by unseen hands. The Comanche warriors stirred uneasily, and one moved to stop her, but the elder raised a hand, not in permission, but resignation. "It has already begun," he said. "Nothing will stop it now, only shape it." Elia crouched beside the seaman, stared into the darkness below. She didn't see earth or stone. She saw places. Images flickered through the opening like smoke. Her mother standing beneath a red moon. A child screaming in a cradle of roots, hands reaching through fire. Then, a face. Not her mother's, not hers. Something older, watching. "What is?" "The first one?" she asked aloud, voice trembling. The elder spoke from the edge of the chamber. The first one was the voice the land once obeyed. Before Comanche, before anyone. It gave shape to what should never have form. And it needed a name to survive. Elia stood slowly. "My name?" The boy's voice was tight with worry. "Your mother gave it a name to protect you. But now that name answers when the ground calls." The stone beneath her feet began to vibrate. Symbols carved into the walls rearranged themselves, slowly, shifting to match the shape of the pendant. Elia held it in both hands and felt heat flooding her arms, like sap rising through bark. She remembered her mother kneeling in this very chamber, bleeding, chanting, sealing something away not with hate but with sorrow. "She didn't imprison it," Elia said softly. "She sang it to sleep." The crack widened, not violently, but as though sighing open. From the depths rose not a monster, but a shape made of shadow and smoke. Tall, vaguely human, but missing eyes, mouth, definition. It drifted forward, drawn by the name carved into her pendant. Elia didn't run. She stood still, trembling. The voice returned inside her skull. "Sana, you are the echo of her choice." The creature stopped before her. No breath, no threat, only recognition. "What do you believe the first one wants from Elia? Reunion, rebirth, or release? Share your thoughts in the comments." The chamber felt suspended in time, as though the air itself held its breath. The shadow that stood before Elia was not shaped by hate or hunger. It was made of loss, of exile, of something forgotten too long and remembered too suddenly. The glow from her pendant intensified, casting beams across the chamber that illuminated every crack, every rune, every ancestral scar carved into the stone. The first one, or whatever it had once been, remained silent. But inside Elia, thoughts and voices began to rise, not her own, but tethered to her blood. She saw her mother again, younger, more afraid than she had ever let on. She was here, in this chamber, her hands pressed to the stone, whispering words of binding. Elia felt the ache in her ribs, the burn in her palms. Her mother had sealed. The first one not to destroy it, but to save the world from what it became when left nameless, when abandoned. "You are not my burden," Elia whispered to the shadow. "You are my inheritance." The shape shifted, folding in on itself as if those words soothed something. From behind her, the elder Comanche chanted again, his voice steady now, no longer afraid. "The child bears the name," he intoned, "but the child must choose the path." Elia turned toward him. "What path?" "To carry it further, or to end it here," he replied. "One binds, one releases. Both cost everything." She looked back to the first one. Its form had begun to splinter at the edges, dissolving like mist under sunlight. It did not beg. It did not resist. It waited. She stepped into the center of the stone circle, the cracks beneath her feet glowing like roots under fire. Around her, ancient memories surged, the earth screaming as settlers came, the rivers crying when poisoned, the skies grieving under rifles and smoke. The first one had witnessed it all, without a voice. Until her mother gave it one, until Elia carried it. She dropped to her knees, pressed both palms to the warm stone, and spoke. One word, peace. The light exploded upward, not in violence, but in release. The shadow unraveled, the ground trembled, then settled. The air returned, sweet with cedar and rain. When she opened her eyes, the crack was sealed. The pendant was dark. The first. One was gone. The elder approached slowly. You chose silence, he said, not erasure. Elia nodded, her voice raw. It never wanted to be worshipped or feared, only remembered. Do you believe Elia's choice ended the cycle? Or just passed it to another generation? Leave your thoughts in the comments. When Elia emerged from the depths, the world above felt impossibly wide. The sky had never seemed so blue, nor the ridge so steep. Her legs trembled, not from weakness, but from shedding a weight she hadn't known she carried since birth. The 6 Comanche said little as they climbed back up the slope. There was no need for words. They had seen what lay beneath the land. They had felt the breath of the first one, and they knew the cost Elia had paid to silence it, not in chains, but in memory. Back at the cabin, the wind moved differently, no longer whispering warnings, but singing through the pines like an old friend returned. Elia stepped onto the porch and paused, looking back once more at the trail behind them. The valley no longer pulsed with secrets. It lay still, content. The elder approached and handed her the deerskin map once more, now blank. Its symbols vanished. It remembers now, he said. It doesn't need to speak. Elia accepted it, folding it without a word. The boy who had ridden with her hesitated before mounting. Will you stay? He asked. She nodded. This was her home. It is mine now, but not for hiding. He offered her a small bundle. Inside, the bone pendant, no longer glowing, and a single braid of black hair. Elia pressed them to her heart. The men rode off without ceremony, fading into the morning fog like the old world they had carried. With them, alone again, Elia walked inside. The carvings on the cabin walls remained, but they looked different now, not like riddles, but like stories finally understood. She sat before the fire pit and placed the pendant beside the hearthstone, where her mother's mark still lay. Thank you, she whispered, for letting me finish what you began. Outside, a blackbird landed on the porch rail, cocked its head, then flew toward the east. Elia watched it disappear into the light. For the first time in 19 years, she did not wait for someone to return. She had become the voice now, of her mother, of the land, of something older. She would speak, not with fear, but with truth. And when the valley called again, for someone else, she would be here, not as a keeper, but as a witness. The circle was closed, but the story, as all stories, was only beginning. Do you think Elia's story is truly over, or is she just the first of many to walk the sacred line? Tell us in the comments below.